फैज़ कहते हैं कि क्यों ना जहाँ का गम अपना लें, फैज़ कहते हैं कि क्यों ना जहाँ का गम अपना लें, बाद में सब तदबीरें सोचें। पहले जहाँ का गम अपना लें, बाद में सब तदबीरें सोचें, बाद में सुख के सपने देखें और फिर सपनों की ताबीरें सोचें, लेकिन पहले दुनिया का या जहाँ का गम अपना लें। फैज़ साहब का तालीम के साथ, एजुकेशन के साथ एक बहुत शुरू से ही उनका साथ रहा। अमृतसर में वो पढ़ाते रहे, जिस वक्त वहाँ पे प्रोफेसर एमडी तासीर वहाँ पे थे, और एमडी तासीर साहब की जो वाइफ और फैज़ साहब की जो वाइफ हैं, ये दोनों बहनें थीं। और एमडी तासीर, मैं आपका जिक्र करता चलूँ कि एमडी तासीर हमारे जो गवर्नर जिनकी डेथ हुई थी, वो उनके वालिद एमडी तासीर, सलमान तासीर के वालिद, जिनको कत्ल कर दिया गया था ब्लास्फेमी के एक चक्कर में पाकिस्तान में। जैसे मैंने आपको शुरू में बताया था कि हमारे इस प्रोग्राम को कमेटी ऑफ प्रोग्रेसिव पाकिस्तानी कैनेडियंस की तरफ से हमने इसको देखा, और मतलब कि ये इनिशिएटिव लिया, और इसमें हमें सहयोग, सपोर्ट, कोलैबोरेशन जो है वो यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ ब्रिटिश कोलंबिया का जो एशियन स्टडीज़ डिपार्टमेंट है उसकी तरफ से थी। और हम सब की हर दिल अज़ीज़ हमारी एक अच्छी दोस्त डॉक्टर एन मर्फ़ी यहाँ पे हैं। सो आई वुड लाइक कि डॉक्टर एन मर्फ़ी यहाँ पे आए और फैज़ के बारे में कुछ हमें बताएं। डॉक्टर एन मर्फ़ी।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। सबसे पहले मुझे माफ़ी मांगनी है कि मुझे ये जो मैंने लिखा है मुझे उर्दू में लिखने का मौका नहीं मिला। इस करके मैं अंग्रेज़ी में थोड़ी सी बात करूँगी। और ये भी है कि जब भी मैं उर्दू या हिंदी में बात करना शुरू करती हूँ तो हल्ले हल्ले पंजाबी बन जाती है। इस करके मैं दोनों ज़बानों को छोड़ के मैं अंग्रेज़ी में बात करूँगी। तरक्की, that's the idea I wanted to speak about today, to begin with and then end this very short talk with. Because progress, or tarakki, was a central concern of Faiz Ahmad Faiz, whom we remember today. And it's because it's something we also need to leave here with today, an idea of the progressive and progressivism that promotes real awareness and doesn't accept simple answers. I thought I'd speak, and thank you again for the invitation to come and speak and for including the Department of Asian Studies in this event. I thought I'd speak about the importance of Faiz at universities in North America, and particularly UBC, because of course that's what I do for a living. I work in a university. But also because it's in that context that I first came into contact with Faiz in an Urdu class with Francis Pritchett at Columbia University in New York City. There, we gathered together in the evenings to read Faiz and other Urdu poets, a group of undergraduates, graduate students, and then also just members of the interested public who came to Professor Pritchett's classes to understand his poetry and his vision of tarakki. So I'll draw a little bit on that experience and then also present a little bit, a very small glimpse of some of the Western scholarship and translations of Faiz to discuss that vision. And when I talk about that, मैं नहीं कहती हूँ कि ये सिर्फ South Asian लोगों के लिए हैं. I really want to जोर देना चाहती हूँ कि because I think there is a perception, particularly at the universities that I've been at, UBC included, that kind of South Asian things are for people of South Asian descent, and obviously that's true. But it's also true that they're for everyone else as well, and obviously that's why I do what I do. I'm not South Asian, but I'm deeply invested in the intellectual commitments of artists like Faiz. So I just want to emphasize that the kind of, what I think is important about Faiz is not something that's limited to one culture, and that's kind of the point of what I want to say. So in general, what can students learn from Faiz? Why does Faiz matter at a place like UBC? Well, there's the obvious reason that he was so fully a man and a poet of his time, responding to the promise of anti-colonial nationalist activity and the betrayal of this promise in the post-colonial state, a lament heard in India as well as in Pakistan among progressives, but in different forms. And that's really in his Siyasi leader ke naam, that comes forward very forcefully. His example tells us about the post-colonial state of Pakistan and the complex social and political forces within it, which is so ill understood in North America. This misunderstanding is seen so vividly in really flawed foreign policies in South Asia, and particularly in Pakistan, and particularly in the United States. So Faiz offers us a window into something that North Americans in general really need to know about. He's also very important for his Taraqi Pasand, his progressivism, his commitments to progressive politics, and that's needed more now than ever before. That politics offers us an opportunity to think about poetry beyond the binary between the political and the literary, between siyasi and shairi, adabbi, and that which is seen to be in opposition to it, as in South Asia as well as here. So this idea of politics and real life versus the literary. I mean, there's a whole wealth of literature that shows us that these two are connected, and Faiz is in that literature. He speaks to us beautifully, connecting form and content, what is both khubsurati, or husn, or beauty, and hakikat, reality. But perhaps the most important thing about Faiz in the university, in the context of university education, is what brings us here today, his popularity. Why does Faiz appeal so much to so many people, both in South Asia and outside of it? Ralph Russell, one of the few Western scholars who has taken as his field the study of Urdu literature, notes that the key to Faiz's work is his embrace of what he calls the universality of the ghazal, its ability to speak widely and embrace well-known themes and tropes that make it familiar and understandable, and at the same time invites almost infinite variety and play. In line with that, we can see how Faiz spoke from specific historical circumstances, but the specifics of these circumstances were also transcended. He spoke to all. And so now I'm going to resort to my book of poetry by Faiz. And I'm sorry that I'll read it, which is that I'm not going to, मैं अच्छी तरह से नज़म सुनाऊं नहीं कर सकती हूँ, नहीं सुना सकती हूँ, क्योंकि मैं किताबों में पढ़ती हूँ आमतौर से. So that's my interface with Urdu poetry. But he speaks to us and he says, Bol, ki lab azad hain tere. Bol, zaban ab tak teri hai. Tera satwan jism hai tera. Bol, ki jaan ab tak teri hai. So he speaks to us with in very general terms about the need to speak. Now, Ralph Russell notes that that Faiz was criticized for not being more specific in what he was saying people should speak about, what needed fixing in the difficult years after independence, such as he also wrote in Freedom's Dawn, a beautiful poem. Russell claims that this disregard for a specific political program is in keeping with the need to maintain what Russell calls a certain generality in poetry, as opposed to prose. So again, he's keeping kind of this formalist argument intact. I'd argue again against that what Faiz accomplishes in his mapping of the general onto the local, his ability to kind of speak about his local circumstances and make them everyone's, his finding of a larger message in the specifics of Pakistani life and politics is something else. It's not about kind of the generalities of poetry, but instead that combination of political incitement and emotional intimacy and general applicability is not generality, but the human. So what he achieves is not to kind of lose political and social relevance, but instead to make it all of ours, so that we all can own it. Let's see if I can find this other poem that I thought speaks to this. No, that's not it. Well, I'm having trouble finding it, so I'll have to leave it for now. Sorry. What these poems, particularly these poems written in his first collection about responding to independence and some of the failures in the view of Faiz and many progressives of the Pakistani state to fulfill its promise, is something that speaks to all of us. The human, then, is what is at the center of Faiz's poetry. It's the basis of its appeal. And this, I think, lets us see what is really truly important about Faiz in the university, in the humanities, the subjects that are designed to develop the human values and concerns of students, the arts, languages, literature, history, to see commonalities among us as we recognize our great diversity. In this way, both the content and form of the engaged poem, the politically engaged poem, relate fundamentally to the task of education itself, to form a person, to form peoples as cultural groups, and also as people, as individuals, and to celebrate the words and the forms and the ideas that take form in those words. And so that's where I think we should locate Faiz in this kind of, in the human, in the broadest sense. His international interests, he was deeply concerned with Iranian students, with the execution of the Rosenbergs in the United States who were wrongly accused of espionage, for political prisoners everywhere, of course, especially after his own imprisonment. So he spoke out widely and also about the personal. So his large world was embedded in himself. So Faiz Ahmad Faiz has been praised by many as a revolutionary and as a poet, but he hasn't always found praise. Some have found some of his poetry lacking. Some lovers of the ghazal might criticize the content of his work and find an affront his free verse works. Progressive writers might criticize, as I said, his lack of a specific political program in some of his poetry, and his less than human portrayal of the poor. He portrays the poor in very, very stark terms, but of course that's the point. He's trying to shock us out of complacency. A feminist critic might rightly ask him to imagine women as more than alluring beloveds, to see the trials of women alongside those of men. Ralph Russell, who I referred to earlier, this Western critic, sees Faiz as contradictory, leading a life of relative comfort while providing lip service to progressive values. And all that may be true, at least in part. But Faiz stands apart, I think, partially because of those contradictions, because of the way he integrates different kinds of life worlds in his poetry, his successes and his failures, emblematic of a particular moment in the politics of his day and of his particular perspective on the contradictions that form our own lives. I think he stands before us fully human, to argue for a kind of taraqi, or progress, that doesn't have easy answers, a taraqi that asks us to progress ourselves inside as well as outside in society. Thank you.
साहिबान, आज बैसाखी का दिन है. Position, no, fire.